Hello, my darlings, and everyone, welcome back to The Library is Open. So I hope you brought your library cards. Can you believe it is September? Well, it will be September when you see this. I'm recording this on the last day of August, so, you know, it's near as damn it, isn't it? I'm also cheating on tea again with some water. Notice how I felt the need to take a sip there to illustrate to you exactly what that is, because you've never seen water before. And I'm not showing you the label because they don't sponsor me. They could, but they don't. So yes, anyway, well, what was I saying? Just jumping on for a little update and to do a little launch of a future video as well, which I thought might be quite nice, because I've got some life news. So when you see this, which will be, I think, first week of September at some stage, let's say. I don't know maths. It will be 2 weeks until I'm moving house. Yes, if you don't know, I am now permanent in my job with a kind of promotion, and so I'm moving over to live where I work, basically. Well, not exactly where I work, obviously, because that'd be weird, but you know, in that city, so that'll be nice. So it doesn't mean any interruption to kind of the content, but it might mean some slightly different backgrounds when I do film the videos. So anyway, yeah. So lots of packing up, lots of moving, lots of going through things. You know, I'm very much a creature of habit, and I'm quite, I wouldn't say I'm a hoarder per se, but I think I have tendencies. You know, when it comes to things that are my kind of special interests. But what would I say? But I think it comes from a place of, I don't think I necessarily have the collector's mentality per se, but I think when I draw kind of emotional connections with things, I like to keep hold of them. So I end up with things like receipts from something I did, or, you know, theatre ticket stubs from, you know, things I've seen or been in, etc. You know, things like that. And then you look back years later and you think, actually, the memory is enough. The memory is quite enough. So yeah, things are looking pretty sparse where I currently am at the moment as I do the whole moving thing, and gave me a little bit of inspiration for a future vlog, which I will tell you about at the end of this one. But so that's what's going on with me. But as promised, I think I promised anyway, I want to update you a little bit on what I'm reading this week in between the madness. So I'm now juggling 3 different things, right? I know what you're saying to me. You're crazy. That's accurate. But but also one of them is an audiobook, so I should get dispensation for that, I think. But anyway, so here's what I'm reading at the moment. Just in the thingy of, you know, trying to keep a nice mix of stuff that I'm reading, kind of trying to be able to mood read when I feel like it, as I know a lot of you have fed back as well, and you know, just to kind of keep everything fresh. So again, 2 physical books, 1 digital, well, audio recording, I should say. The first one that I'm reading is was nominated for the Waterstones debut prize, and I'm just looking because I realised I've taken the slip cover off. Do you ever do that with hardbacks, you know, so they don't get all bent out of shape and stuff? But this is called Carla by Colin Walsh. I think this is a signed one as well, which is lovely. Been reading a lot of Irish fiction at the moment. I think I go through phases of reading about particular places or from particular authors and backgrounds and stuff. There's a new Anne Enright coming out, or rather it will have come out by the time you see this, called The Wren, on the theme of Irish literature, that I really want to get hold of. That's a recommendation. And so this one is, I've not got far. Smells amazing, by the way. But this one is about a group of friends who come back to their kind of old stomping ground. You know, life's taken them all in very different directions. And one of their friends from back then has disappeared and has been kind of like discovered. The body's been discovered, basically. And I guess it's kind of about how that kind of classic trope of returning to a place of your childhood and it bringing up old memories and so on and so forth. I'm just I'm just getting the full synopsis up on the Google to be fully honest with you, to make sure I'm not missing anything, because like I say, it's not long been out, and I've not long started reading it, so I don't have a full appreciation of what the plot is. Yes, so it's they were a group of 6 originally, and then 3 of them come back to town, and oh yes, that's right. Yeah, so the original friend disappeared, and then 2 remains of 2 other girls have been discovered in the woods. So it's a little bit like, is history repeating, etc., and so on and so forth. So far, I'm really enjoying it. It's quite gentle, actually, despite given the subject matter, and you know, we're kind of getting to know the characters in the first person as we go along, which I really, really like, because you know, I think you can always go like one of 2 ways with these kind of things, can't you? You can do sort of intense character study, or you can do kind of full-on plot, and so far this seems to be kind of trying to balance the 2 with a slight skew into the characters. I'm not sure how I feel about a preference for those 2 styles. Probably it depends, doesn't it, on what your expectation is going in. Like, if I'm going for a thriller, I'm not too bothered about, like, a full thriller, I'm not too bothered about character development. I just want the plot. But if I'm going for, you know, something more like a meditation on something, then I definitely want the character development and their inner thoughts. So at the moment, this is nearer to the latter, but with a little bit of a combination of the 2. So, you know, maybe that'll shift as we go along. But yeah, this is slated to do very well. I don't think it won the debut prize for Waterstones, but it was definitely shortlisted, which is a major achievement. Anyway, funnily enough, on the subject of kind of mood reading about looking backwards and stuff, I feel like I've chosen this almost subconsciously. Sorry, I was just nosing out the net curtains there. This is a kind of more, I guess, straight up thriller, but I think there's more going on, and kind of, as I've started it, which I did the other night, it's kind of reminding me a little bit of stuff like My Dark Vanessa and things like that, with that kind of looking back at, you know, troubling things that happened in the past that maybe you didn't realise were troubling at the time, and then the idea of revenge and so on and so forth. So this one I've had on my TBR for a while. It's called Dark Things I Adore by Katie Lattari. And this one is set in kind of 2 time periods. It's 1988 and it's 2018. And in 1988, there's a group of outcasts, as they're described, who gather at this arts camp in the woods in Maine. And, you know, things happen. I haven't read from that time period yet. I've only read the present day one. They're bright, hopeful, I'm reading off the back now, teeming with potential, but secrets and dark ambitions develop, and the truths they tell will come back to haunt them in ways more deadly than they dreamed. And then in the present day, well, it's 2018, there's this art professor called Max who's going to his protege's house to look at her senior thesis, but he really fancies her, so, you know, something nefarious is probably going to go on. But what he doesn't know is that his student has engineered every aspect of their weekend together, and she's woven this perfect web because she knows what truly happened back in 1988, and the dark things that followed on from what happened there, and she decides that someone has to pay. So that's quite interesting, isn't it? And I hadn't even thought until I was just describing them to you both now that they actually have that similar kind of look back and forward, you know, or returning to somewhere where something notorious happened in the past. So far, again, they're in quite similar places. I would say Carla is more gentle in the way that it's thinking at the moment, whereas Dark Things I Adore is already quite atmospheric, and we're getting those ideas of foreboding. There's just been a scene where the professor goes to this hunting shop. Obviously, I disapprove of hunting, but it's in the story. And buys this big knife. So there's quite a lot of tension going on there. They're in the car together, and he keeps slipping this knife back and forth. It's quite tense. You know, which makes me think that's quite an interesting subversion of, in a similar way that you know, the movie Hard Candy did it. If you haven't seen it, look it up. It's an interesting prospect. I don't think it fully carried out what it intended to do, or where it could have gone, but it was an interesting premise. So that's what I'm reading currently. again, just baffled by the way that your sort of mind subconsciously picks things that kind of speak to or mirror each other in some ways. Details for both of those, obviously, in the description, as always. I'll just have another little sip of my non-sponsored water. No, don't look. Don't give them promotion. But anyway, yeah, so all this clearing out, I've actually donated a lot of books to charity now, like a lot. That I was like, I'd just be really honest with myself about whether it was useful to keep hold of things, or whether I was just keeping hold of things out of habit, or, you know, not wanting to, you know, make the mental effort to go through everything. And I thought, actually, they're better passed on to people that will get some joy from them. If I've got no intention of reading them again, it's like, pay it forward, isn't it? But what I did discover, which is great and has given me an idea for a future vlog, maybe not next vlog, but the one after, whenever I get around to it, is I found loads of my childhood favourites that I've kept hold of, which I'm not getting rid of. Funnily enough, there are some series or collections of books that I just don't get rid of because they mean a lot to me, or they meant a lot to me at the time. I've mentioned before I was a huge quick reader when I was a kid, when we could be bought books. And then sometimes, obviously, we go to the library and stuff, and then I ended up eventually getting copies of my own when I started making my own money. So, yeah, but I found these, which I think, these 5 books that kind of sum up the majority of the series that I was really interested in when I was a kid. And I thought what might be really, really fun is to have a day, 2 days, maybe even a full week of reading as if I was a kid again, and having a look over these books and seeing if they kind of hold up is the wrong phrase, because how could they be expected to hold up? They're like 30 odd years old, some of these, more. Some of them are like nearly what was it? When was this one published? Hang on, before I spoil it and tell you what it is. First published, yeah, some of these are like 80 years old or something like that, but obviously not these editions. But just to see kind of where I was as a kid, whether where I am now is reading them differently, reflecting on them, seeing if there's anything slightly, you know, problematic or wouldn't happen these days, just out of interest to see. I thought it might be quite fun. I'm a creature of nostalgia. I love a bit of looking back. So anyway, so here's what I'm going to read for the Reading Like a Kid vlog. Or Reading Like a Stuart vlog, I probably should say. Not every kid. So you've heard me, here we go. So here you've heard me mention this series on the channel before. But this is the kind of offshoot series of my adored The Babysitter's Club by Anne M. Martin. Well, ghost written by this point in the series. And this is one of the mystery novels. So they have the general series, the mystery novels, the super specials, and so on. But this was always one of my favourites because my favourite character was Claudia. If you're not familiar with the premise, it's 7 young women in 1980s, early 90s Connecticut form a babysitting club where they babysit for local kids. And then the mystery series is similar premise, but they also have to solve mysteries. And yeah, that's my favourite babysitter, Claudia, who was notoriously weirdly drawn on absolutely every edition by various artists. And she, in this one, she enters a baking competition, but there's a baking tamperer on the loose, so a crime that the babysitters have to solve because someone's cheating. But yeah, always my fave with Claudia. Slightly older than that, from the 50s in fact, this is an Enid Blyton. Problematic person, probably, but I was a big fan of her when I was a kid, so, you know. And this was one of my favourites in the 5th at Malory Towers. So she wrote, obviously, the famous 5, The Secret 7, but her Malory Towers and St. Clair's series were like the kind of girls' boarding school series. And this is the exact edition that I had, which was published in... And I remember I got it from as well. It was Toys R Us. 1993, this one. And this is about, they're in the 5th form at the school, so very middle class. And they have to put on a production of Cinderella, which is high camp, as I'm sure you can imagine. I imagine there'll be quite a lot of problematic content in here, but isn't that the fun of looking back? And also knowing that we do better. So, you know. Third one, also on the school kind of series vibe, was this one. So I used to read... this other boarding school series called Trebizon, which was can't remember exactly where it was set actually, but this is the one I've got a copy of. I read the whole series, but this is summer term at Trebizon, and this was our main character was a woman called Rebecca Mason. I think it was kind of an attempt to update the boarding school series kind of genre, if you will. And so this feels much more like an 80s kind of thing, and this is about she's struggling with our main character who wants to be a journalist, that's right, is struggling with maths and can't get help with it, and then there's a sponsored surfing competition and some money is stolen. I think they put on a play in this as well, which is interesting, but you can just tell how they were going for a slightly more modern thing. Like, look at the typeface. But I remember having a lot of fun with these when I was younger, and so I'm looking forward to this as well. From the Aussies, or for the Aussies, I should say, there was this series that it was published in the early 90s, is that standard, by Emily Rodda. The Trebizon series is by Anne Digby. This was called the Ravenhill Mysteries. Now, I remember these being really strange, actually, because they had sort of supernatural elements to them as well, but and kind of going off at weird tangents. I remember there being one about a gingerbread house, which made me go, I'm not sure what's going on here, but there we go. And this is about this group of 6 young people who they form a club where I think, as I recall, they offer to take on any job in the local area. But and in this one, they get jobs delivering the local paper. But there's tampering going on. Not everybody in the local town, which is called Ravenhill, wants the paper delivered. There's someone who'll stop at nothing to see the paper close. And you know, you just think, I think this one has ghosts in it as well. It's called The Ghost of Ravenhill. It's the first in the series. And I just remember thinking it was absolutely bonkers. Reminded me a little bit of like Round the Twist, which used to be on BBC when I was a kid. If you've ever seen that, if you haven't, YouTube it. Absolutely bonkers. Also Australian. Brilliant stuff. But I do remember really, really liking this series. And then finally, this was great. This is so 90s. I think it's the 90s. Yeah, early 90s this was published. This is a series called Internet Detectives. Now, this was kind of, I wouldn't have had the internet. We wouldn't have had the internet at school or anything like that at the time. But this was kind of the introduction to that. And this is about a group of people who communicate entirely via the web in its early days from around the globe, and there are mysteries that they have to solve, but purely through, you know, being online. And this is the first book in the series, Net Bandits, which is about a young girl called Tamsin who receives a get help, please, for me message from this guy who called Zedmaster, who I believe is called Rob, if I recall. And then kind of starts contacting this network of people. I think one of them's in Toronto. I think one of them might be in Australia, America, England, all that kind of stuff. And they have to figure out what's happened to him through these sparse messages. So I remember this series being really good and so vintagey, like such a 90s idea of what the future was going to look like for kids to read about technology, if that makes sense. So there we go. I'll put details for all of those as well down in the description, as with what I'm currently reading, but that's what to look out for. So let me know some of your favourite childhood books as well. Do you keep hold of your childhood books? Have you ever reread your old favourites? And if so, have you been surprised by the results, or just pleasantly, you know, immersed in that lovely nostalgia? But for now, put your library card somewhere safe. Maybe the next time I see you, I will be just about to move or will have moved. So let's see how timing works out with that. But for now, do take care of yourselves. I'm sending you all much love, life, and literature. I shall see you soon. Just said that. Shut up, Stuart. Just go. Bye.